are listening to Society Bites Radio, social interaction for the mind and soul. Thanks for joining us. I'm your host, Naomi Slater, and you have tuned into Divine Couples, adding intimacy, passion, and healing to your lives. Lourdes Starshower is an advanced certified Tantra educator, sacred sexuality coach, relationship coach, clairvoyant energy healer, clinical hypnotherapist, and EMDR therapist. Lourdes is the founder of the Ecstatic Dakini Tantra Certification Program, catalyzing the success of female Tantra practitioners in South Florida. She's the author of an online video program titled Tantra Practices for Divine Ecstasy. Tantra Practices for Divine Ecstasy. She holds a BA in psychology and an MA in wellness. She holds retreats and workshops in South Florida and at Tantra festivals. In order to support the conscious community during quarantine, Lourdes is holding Friday night Zoom classes. She uses breakout room technology to provide singles with a way to connect deeply with each other through authentic relating and energetic tantric experiences. Couples also enjoy the ability to drop into tantric practices together, whether they are in the same home or separate locations. Lourdes, it's so great to have you on Divine Couples. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here, Naomi.
Thank you. Thank you. So I know you have been in the field for a long time. How were you introduced to Tantra?
That's a fun story to tell. My former husband and I were attempting to conceive our first child. And he shared with me that I had him on a schedule and that he felt like his only job in my life was to serve as my baby making machinery. And it was really bothering him. And right about that time, I discovered Tantra and I brought him in and we started to practice it. And we made a baby with no stress on his part or mine. Yeah, it's really good.
That's beautiful. So I know you work a lot with couples. Can you tell me how communication affects relationships and what tools you teach couples to help them improve their communication skills?
Yeah, I'm wanting to say, Naomi, and I realize I'm sort of stepping aside from your question because what's bubbling up for me and really alive in this moment is how important it is to have intimacy, sexual intimacy. And so when we're talking about communication, if you stop having sexual intimacy, communication can completely break down because each of you are going to be under internal stress, whether you perceive it or not. It could be unconscious internal stress. And when you're under internal stress, your bandwidth lowers in terms of what kinds of statements or looks or energy you can perceive from your partner and stay comfortable. And so it's a spiral and a circle. So when we have really great communication, we are more likely to have less walls building up. When we have less walls building up, we're more likely to want to have sex with each other, which makes communication easier. So back to other aspects of that question, and that is, I teach them to really look into each other's eyes and to really listen with their heart, as well as with their ears wide open, with setting aside any thoughts about what they want to say next in response to what their partner is saying. And so it's a deep listening. And from that deep listening, there are tools we can use, such as mirroring back what we heard. So I think what I'm hearing you say is, so now they really feel heard and they get to tell you, well, no, that's not exactly what I meant. Or they get to say, yeah, thanks. I feel heard, and then also to offer support without offering how you can fix it. especially for men, but some women also can fall into this, wanting to give advice instead of just listening and letting,
Listening.
yeah, and empathizing. I would
Yeah.
imagine that that would feel not so good. I'm hearing you say that it felt like I was criticizing you. I would imagine that didn't make
Mm,
you feel very good. Now
mm.
I've heard them and I've empathized with them.
That's beautiful. Would you say that one comes before the other? I mean, if you're not communicating well, that affects your intimacy and vice versa. So, is there one that you kind of start with and that leads to the other, or how do you deal with that?
Yeah, that's an individual situation in the partnership. And I can just tell you right now that for my partner and I, we've been together 7 years. We have beautiful communication. And because we're both under stress right now, because both of us have he's lost his total income, I've lost my primary income, that
Mm,
for us, lack of intimacy has led to communication issues. And that's why
yes.
that's what bubbled up inside of me. But I work with
Hmm.
couples where it's the things that got left unsaid. So somebody gets their feelings hurt and they don't speak that their feelings are
Yeah.
hurt. They put up a wall. And then the
Mm,
other person now gets their feelings hurt and they put up a wall in response to the wall from person A. And the bricks
it's a
keep
cycle.
building.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it can come in from both directions. I'm just keenly aware of you can have great communication, and if something starts to eat away at your intimacy, even if it's not related to your love for each other, not related to your passion, not related to how much you enjoy sex together, which is what's happening for us right now, all those three things are
Mm,
great. and
mm,
and yet when intimacy started to not have enough time in our lives or not become a priority because of lack of sleep and stress, um, that's where we started having communication issues because things that we would say to each other would hurt internally
yeah.
a person who's already not getting enough intimacy. So it's been
Thank
fascinating to watch.
Thank you so much for sharing yourself with us because I think that is where we can really learn the most, is where we bring ourselves into these situations and really examine how we are dealing. And that's how we're really able to help others in a very, very deep and profound way. So thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
Um, Unfortunately, many people have experienced sexual trauma. I hear this all of the time. How
Mhm.
can people begin to heal themselves from this?
Yeah, sexual trauma is a complex issue, and some people and they have varying amounts. So some people have experienced it once or twice. Some people have experienced it repeatedly throughout their childhood or throughout their adolescence or throughout their adult lives as well. And unfortunately, once we are traumatized, if we don't heal it, we're sort of our energy field is sort of set up for us to experience it again. And it sounds like a really horrible uh,
Mm,
sequence of events, but if you look at the totality of the scheme of things, people are coming back into our life to re-wound us with wounds that have happened in the past so that we can heal them. And so, if we can break the cycle by beginning to seek healing, and for severe trauma, in my belief, the best healing is EMDR therapy, eye movement
mm,
desensitization and reprocessing, because it supports the images, memories, and sensations that happened at the time of the trauma that got stuck in the limbic brain and the brainstem in the back of the brain. It supports them in being able to move up into the frontal lobes and the neocortex, which is the thinking brain, the rational brain, our master computer that can integrate experiences from the past and support us in being able to come into our own aha moments, continue to have healing naturally
Mm.
in our daily situations, or drawing in the people that are gonna, or the places or the events that are gonna help the healing, once we begin to bring it up into the frontal lobes. And
Hmm.
I'm just going to backtrack a second just to say that when we go into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, which is sort of like a submitting, if we go into any of, we have a situation that's dangerous and makes us go into any of those reactions, our blood flow to the frontal lobe shuts down to keep us from thinking and taking time to make a rational decision. And so, because of that, that's why these images, sensations, and memories stay locked in the back of the brain, the reptilian brain and the mammalian brain, which processes our emotions and our sensations. And so, even our dream sleep, our rapid eye movement sleep, doesn't can't process these things that come in under stress. And so there's also like a permanency to them. We feel like they're still happening because they never got a timestamp and never came into the memory system of our brain where we know that something happened at 3 or 4 and isn't happening now as our partner looks at us with
Mm.
sexual interest, and our body drops into fear that he's going to hurt
Yeah.
us.
That's so fascinating. And you touched on something in the beginning that I also thought was very interesting. You talked about people having this kind of energetic pull, if they've experienced sexual trauma, that may, in an unconscious way, invite it in again. And they have to recognize that. And they also have to essentially stop being the victim in order to change that patterning.
Yeah.
But it seems that that might be a very hard thing to do if somebody that's, for someone that's experienced sexual trauma. How do you do that?
Yeah, and oftentimes you don't really have the idea that you have a victim mentality. The
Mhm.
victim mentality doesn't come from within us. It comes from other people labeling us as that. All we know is on a vibratory level, we are drawing something in. And so I'm speaking from the inside of the person who has that happening to them. And you don't even have to have a victim mentality, because let's speak about a lesser trauma. So let's speak about somebody who was objectified in their early sexual years, never been raped, never had real abuse, but their first partners were using them.
Mm.
And many people do that because they've grown, especially the younger generation that has grown up with porn as their primary source of education about sexuality, that's what their psyches and their animal bodies naturally do because they've witnessed it so much.
That's what they're integrating into their system daily.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so let's say a man, because this is generally how it happens, although not always, has been watching porn. He doesn't really know he's objectifying women. He doesn't really know this is anything different than what women want. And he encounters a woman who is newly discovering her sexuality, and he teaches her sex from this place, and
Mhm.
or teaches her how to be sexual with him from this place. Now she's been sort of objectified. When that partnership dissolves, she is moving into the world, no idea she's got any sort of victim mentality, and she really doesn't have a victim mentality. She's just been sort of
Educated.
processed into, yes,
Right.
yes,
Yeah.
into this sense of, this is who I am and this is what I deserve.
Yeah, this is this
And
is